Hello everyone. Welcome to a country analysis of China. We will be looking into the geography, history, politics and economy of this nation. Let us start with a small introduction. The Chinese refer to the nation as Chongguo, which means Middle Kingdom. As is the case with many countries, the state's name comes from external sources. In this case, ancient Sanskrit texts which talks of people from Qin. Beijing has been the capital of China since independence. The name literally means northern capital, which suggests, as you might have guessed it, a southern capital. Unfortunately, Nanjing was destroyed during the Japanese occupation, but it is a thriving city today. Mandarin Chinese, a variety of the Chinese group of languages, is the most widely spoken language in China. But it is not the only dialect or language spoken in the country. While Mandarin is called Hanyu, the language of the Han, or Putonghua, the language of the common people, Chinese is more commonly known as Chongwen, the language of the Middle Kingdom, aka China. Presently, China is the most populous country with about 1.4 billion people. Covering about 9.5 million square kilometers, China is the fourth largest country in the world. Earlier, the Sinosphere was called the Orient. The word derives from the Latin word oriens, meaning the east or the part of the sky where the sun rises. The term is now considered an outdated racist label as it brings to focus mysticism and agnosticism. China, as evident in its size, is home to wide varieties of landscapes. The Yangtze and Yellow rivers, the third and sixth longest rivers of the world, respectively, have witnessed some of the earliest settlements, one of which, Huanghe civilization, is popularly known as one of the four cradles of civilizations of the Old World. Because of the Himalayas to the south and the Eurasian steppe to the west, the population density is higher in the eastern coast, where the two large rivers flow into the sea. But China has been trying to overcome the difference by building connectivity in the remote areas and promoting migration into the interior. This has led to an influx of the Han, who already are the predominant group of China, comprising of approximately 92% of the population. As mentioned before, China has a long history of settlement and culture. The Western Zhou dynasty began the tradition of legitimizing their rule through the notion of mandate of heaven. The emphasis on just rule rather than noble lineage led to frequent and legitimized the position of the emperor. This is referred to as the dynastic cycle, but this theory has been criticized for perpetuating a generalized understanding of Chinese history, lumping all the dynasties together. Some of the most famous people from the ancient period are Confucius and Sun Tzu. The former is popularly known as Confucius, who emphasized on moral and hierarchical order, influenced by the conflicts that existed during his time, around 6th to 5th century BCE. The latter also lived in the same period, and his famous book, The Art of War, expanded on alternatives to war to defeat an enemy. Around 2nd century BCE, the Silk Road, a crisscross of land trade routes, began connecting China to civilizations to its west, such as Persia. The trade routes were dubbed as Silk Road because of the heavy flow of Chinese silk that took place through them. Related to this trade with China was the tributary system. The system put China on the top and center by making trading countries acknowledge the Chinese emperor's superiority. But the same system spelled China's doom when it came in contact with the British, an empire used to profiting off its explorations and colonialism was miffed when faced with a trade imbalance with China due to a high demand for Chinese luxury goods in Britain. To correct that, the British started growing opium in India and illegally selling that to the Chinese. Realizing the social and economic harm of the opium trade, The Qing emperor ordered the complete halting of this trade, and his underlings seized and destroyed opium stocks. The British won the ensuing war in the mid-19th century and forced the Chinese to sign an unequal treaty which, amongst other things, leased out Hong Kong to the British for 99 years. Other Western countries took advantage of the situation and carved their spheres of influence within China. This humiliation at the hand of Western nations led to anti-Qing and anti-Western uprisings such as Taiping and Boxer rebellions, respectively. The monarchy's failure to reform and the rise of a modern educated class led to the fall of the Qing dynasty in 1911 and the establishment of a republic under Sun Yat-sen. Sun's Kuomintang failed to centralize control, and its failure gave rise for the Chinese Communist Party to gain power. The only interruption to the civil war between these two parties were the combined fights against warlordism and the Japanese forces. CCP's Mao Zedong was able to take control of mainland China and establish the present state of People's Republic of China in 1949. Chiang Kai-shek and his Kuomintang were forced to flee to Taiwan and establish the parallel state of Republic of China. China has had 4 constitutions. The first was heavily influenced by the Soviet model. The latest one of 1982, created in the post-Mao era, allows for more reforms and amendments. Since independence, China has been a one-party communist state, but it has a peculiar blend of authoritarian politics mixed with quasi-liberalized economy currently. China's understanding of democracy is different from its Western sense. It takes inspiration from the Leninist ideal of democratic centralism to reach a middle ground between democracy and authoritarianism. Discussion before emotion is tolerated, but decisions are binding. This makes protests against a set policy difficult. To understand China's political system, one has to understand the CCP structure. The party's delegates meet once every 5 years at the National Congress, where top leadership positions are agreed upon. The National Congress elects the Central Committee for its 5-year term. From this organ, the Politburo is chosen, a group of top-ranking officials. The Politburo is further centralized to form the Politburo Standing Committee, headed by the General Secretary. Xi Jinping currently holds the position. Xi is also the president of the PRC and the chairman of the Central Military Commission. Presidency, formerly known as chairmanship, is a position elected by the unicameral legislature, the National People's Congress. In reality, the NPC is a puppet organ, and most control exists in the hand of the CCP. The NPC is elected every 5 years indirectly by the people. The people elect local legislative bodies, which in turn elect delegates for the NPC. The Standing Committee is the permanent body of the NPC. The NPC also elects the executive and the judicial branches of the government. The State Council, which is the executive, includes the Premier and the cabinet level posts, many of whom are from the Politburo. The judiciary is made up of the court system and the prosecutor's offices. While Mao is considered a great revolutionary, his domestic policies such as the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution failed and led to the deaths of scores of people, official counts of which vary. Mao's biggest challenge at that time was the survival of the new nation, as it faced both American hostility and Soviet domination. According to the changing situation, Mao shifted friendly relations from the USSR to the US, taking over the permanent seat for China from Taiwan. Following Mao's death in 1976, there was a brief period of power struggle, which ended with Deng Xiaoping coming to power. More pragmatic than the idealistic Mao, Deng brought about a series of reforms that opened up the Chinese economy. Special economic zones, decollectivization, and privatization followed. This also involved keeping a low profile in international matters while encouraging friendly relations with all, to attract investments. Any hopes of economic liberalization leading to similar results in the political sphere were dashed in the aftermath of the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989, after which Jiang Zemin rose to power. Under him, Macau and Hong Kong were united with the mainland. China integrated more into the international community, becoming a part of several international regimes since 1990s. In face of rapid industrialization, Hu Jintao advanced sustained development in the 2000s along with the concept of China's peaceful rise to decrease any perception of the country as a threat. But under Xi Jinping, China has assumed a more aggressive stance in defending its interests, especially in disputed areas such as Xinjiang and the South China Sea. China has also embarked on the continent-spanning Belt and Road Initiative. Now, let us come to the present situation. These are the latest economic figures of China. The table layout has been taken from Twitter to you. China is one of the few countries which did not experience negative GDP growth due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Due to the state control of the economy, China could control inflation rates. The unemployment rate peaked earlier in 2020 at 6% and declined to about 5%. But many economists believe that the rate might be higher for young graduates who are more suited to the service industry than the traditional manufacturing one. Like most countries, China witnessed a fiscal deficit due to government spending increasing to prevent any depression during the pandemic. China's debt to GDP ratio has been steadily increasing in the past few years but has not reached the World Bank's threshold of 77%, far from any risk of defaulting on loans, even if the Evergrande crisis disgruntles the economy. China's 10-year bond yield had increased a bit from its slump during the first global wave of COVID infections last year, but it still has not picked up much, indicating that Chinese investors are still wary of taking risks outside the nation. Both investment and saving rates have declined a bit from a peak in early 2010s. Chinese currency system is a managed float regime, which gives China the space to devalue its currency to make its exports more competitive. This explains the country's positive current account balance. One of the main FTAs China is a part of is the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which covers most of East and Southeast Asia. These rankings and figures show that China is an attractive investment hub. But the government has started reining in companies lately due to a drive towards common prosperity. China's Gini coefficient shows that the country is more unequal than most EU countries. Additionally, as the latest fiasco in the World Bank shows, data can be manipulated. You can view some more general basic information on China's macroeconomics and development trajectory in the slide. I hope the video was informative. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know in the comment section